Hi, welcome back to the Johnson Firm's YouTube page. Thank you for checking out our videos. Today, we're going to be talking about some of the fears and roadblocks and concerns leading up to meeting with an attorney about a potential divorce. So just a reminder, my name is Erin Abrams. I'm one of the partners here. We are joined today by Becky Hunter, who is one of our expert family law attorneys here as well. Say hi, Becky.
Hi, welcome.
So today, Becky, let's kind of talk about the things that you and I see often in consultations, but we're aware of these things happening even before the client comes into our office. So would you agree that generally when we see these, hesitancies to meeting with an attorney, we can pretty much summarize them into three categories? Is that your experience?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And so really what I've seen is those breakdowns looking like financial concerns, emotional concerns, and legal concerns. Would you agree with that?
Definitely. That's so normal to have a variety of anxieties and fears. This is a new process. This is something that most people have never gone through before. And so there's always a variety of concern.
Yeah, so let's kind of talk to the viewers here about those financial concerns. Let's give them a couple examples of what that could look like and maybe even what you could hear from an attorney that could alleviate those concerns. So, are there any examples that you could think of that we hear on our end of, hey, this is why I didn't call earlier?
Absolutely. Financial is probably the biggest one that I hear. People are nervous. They're going from a two-income household into two different houses. A lot of times the wife is making money, the husband's making money, but they're under one roof and they have one light bill, one water bill, one mortgage. And so whenever you separate, you have the same amount of money coming in, but double the expenses. And so that can be really scary, and that's understandable.
Yeah, and that's just, I mean, exactly what Becky just said. That's just a reality of every divorce is even if you don't come from a two-income household, you're now supporting two different households on whatever amount of income was had at the time. And so because of that, what I tend to see too is we got a lot of questions about not only, hey, what is my reality? What is my budget going to look like moving forward? But also, what is this going to cost? What are retainer fees and what are consult fees? And I know we get a lot of questions about that. So when a client comes in and says, hey, Billy down the street doesn't charge me a consult fee, but you guys do. What do you tell clients?
I mean, really, like most other things, you get what you pay for. If you have a lawyer that charges a consult fee, that probably means that they're busy and
Yeah.
that they have a good law practice. They get good results, and so their time is valuable.
Another thing it could mean too, and pinning onto what Becky said is, yeah, the lawyer's definitely busy, but also we want to make sure too that the client is serious in wanting to move forward in a case. So of course, attorneys always want to share the information. We want the potential client to be aware of what the law is and what those concerns could be. But also we wanna make sure that this consult's not being requested for some kind of a improper purpose, like, "Hey, look, we just wanna conflict you out because I don't want my ex to have you."
Right.
And so, asking for a consult fee does kind of give assurance to the attorney side of things too of, "Hey, this is a legitimate request for a legitimate purpose, and this is genuinely someone who is looking for us to help in this situation." And I know that kind of dovetailing on to the consult fee, we get a lot of questions related to retainer fee and is that the only payment or how much is this all going to cost? Do you generally have any advice you can provide for those clients in your initial consultation on that?
Erin, that is probably the most common question I get. How much is this going to end up costing me? And unfortunately, I have a very lawyer answer for that. It depends, because it really does. Every case is different. And whenever you hire a family law attorney, you're buying their time. And so it really depends on how much time is spent on your case. And so it's impossible to say how much it's going to ultimately cost. But the good news is that many firms, our firm, we send out monthly invoices so that you can see exactly how much money is accruing as time goes by. And if you have any questions, we're more than happy to talk to our clients about that.
Definitely. Yeah, and so to kind of follow up with something that you said of like it really just depends on the case itself. We're going to get into kind of in a different video some of the fact specific nature that family law is, but it's also different because certain cases can be more or less contentious, right?
Right.
And so how would that have an impact on the client's overall expense to litigate the case?
Absolutely. If something is more contentious, meaning that if people are fighting more, or if maybe they're not fighting, but their case is pretty complex, then more time is just necessarily spent on it. You're hiring the lawyer to help fix a problem. And if it's a complex problem, it's just going to necessarily take more time. And so, unfortunately, those cases tend to be more expensive. But if you hire a family law attorney, who practices family law, specializes in it, does it day in and day out, then they're more likely than a lawyer who does not regularly practice family law to be able to figure out how to take advantage of the legal shortcuts. And they're more likely to have had a case that's very similar to that in the
That's
past.
a really good point. That's an excellent point. Like, we also obviously, we have departments here that do criminal law and personal injury, but if I get a call about a car wreck, I don't know the first thing. I'd have to research a bunch of information that personal injury attorneys already know. That's an excellent point. Making sure that you're going to a firm that this is part of their habitual practice and this is a topic that they're familiar with and can cover.
Right.
That's an excellent point.
It's just like a cardiologist. Cardiologists know hearts. They know something about the rest of the body, but they really know hearts. And whereas a general practitioner doctor will know something about hearts, but they really practice more in the general body. We're like cardiologists in family law. This is what we do day in and day out. And so these issues are really familiar for us. And we know the experts, the forensic accountants, and people like that that can help us with your more complex cases as well. So picking a family law attorney that specializes in family law is crucial.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. And so, really, to kind of round out the last thing that I think we generally see on the financial concerns is, hey, what is this going to look like for me moving forward? I've been able to live at this standard of living, but understandably, we're moving into two different households, and I don't know what that vision looks like. What is it that you share with clients about that? What from day one?
Again, the family law attorney will know what that looks like. The longer you wait, the more of a financial bind you will get in. The faster that you can get in to see an attorney, just like the faster you can get in to see a specialty doctor, the faster they can diagnose the problem and come up with a plan to fix it. But if you procrastinate because of the emotional toll of it all and the stress and just not wanting to deal with it, you're doing yourself no favors, because the attorney will have a plan in place. She would get the ball rolling whenever it is that you're ready to, but at least there's something that we can do on day one. And many times we'll even say, okay, maybe if you're not ready to file now, but you're interested in filing in the future, we can get a file going and get everything ready for the day that you want to pull the trigger. And then everything goes out that day. It's just much better always to have a plan and hire that attorney to help you stay organized in getting that plan. You know, the and while you're in the same house as your spouse, you have unprecedented access, like you won't in the future, to being able to see what bank statements are in. I know what banks my spouse uses, but I couldn't tell you the last four account numbers. And so while you're still in the house and while you're planning and thinking about this process, you can be taking pictures of bank statements, pension letters that come in the mail. Take a picture of that. Take pictures of any collections they have,
Or just items in the house.
items in the house. You're going to need to know this information for a community property partition. And it is much faster, which ends up being cheaper because remember, attorneys are selling their time. It ends up being faster and cheaper for you if you come in with that information for your case and your lawyer doesn't have to go figure it out. So take the time to do some investigating around your house and document stuff, and that will save you so much money and time in the long run.
Yeah, the more information you can provide to the lawyer day one, the more time that we have to help formulate a plan that's going to work best for your unique situation. And whether that looks like making sure you understand all the assets and accounts and debts that the parties together that you and your spouse own or have, that's a huge thing. But also talking to the lawyer about like, hey, this is where I need to be living and this is what my monthly expenses will look like. How can we make sure that that can be maintained?
Right.
And that kind of one of the last things you said brought me to a good point, kind of more to our second topic where we see people have these concerns or roadblocks to coming and meeting with one of us would be some of these emotional concerns, right? So we have the concerns of, hey, like if I'm meeting with a divorce attorney, it kind of makes it feel real for the first time. And so that was a great point you said about like, just because you meet with an attorney does not mean that that day we have to file for the divorce, just like even after we file, there's avenues where potentially parties can reconcile. There's other, things that throughout the process of the divorce, sometimes these emotional roadblocks ends up kind of resolving themselves. So I think part of the sentiment I want to convey in that is that the emotional concern or the my gosh, if we file for divorce, then we must do it. You don't have to. There's off ramps if something work out between you and your spouse. And we do hear that a good bit of like, hey, I didn't want to come in earlier because it made it too real, or I was really hopeful that things were going to get better. Okay. I still tell clients there is no disadvantage to having the information. Okay. The more information you have up front, in the event things don't work out or in the event things don't get better, you're ahead of the game. You already know what it is that you need to provide to an attorney, what steps have to be taken. And I think generally we see a little bit more emotional ease from the clients once they understand that. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. That's how I am. The unknown is scary. Whenever I am faced with a problem and I have no idea how to tackle it, I have noticed that as I get more information from experts, the better I feel. You're actually adding to the stress. You're making yourself feel worse by not consulting with an attorney, because once you consult with that attorney, they will answer so many of those questions and concerns that you have, things that you would have never thought of. And that's how it is whenever I have that check engine light that comes on in my vehicle. What's going on? How much is this going to cost? Oh my gosh. But then you take it to the mechanic, and a lot of times it's not as bad as I have made it in my head. So that information really does alleviate a lot of the stress in my life. And over the last 15 years specializing in family law, I've absolutely seen that. I see it every day with my clients and the people I consult with.
Yeah. And so another one that I know we see a good bit too when we're talking about the emotional roadblocks is what about spouse retaliation? You ever have any consultations related with that or concerns of that?
All the time, and that's a really, that's an understandable, valid concern, and especially in abusive relationships. And again, the faster that you can come in and see a lawyer, the quicker you'll know what tools in the toolbox that you have, what the lawyer can file, what information that they need to help alleviate whatever concerns that you have. There are some everyday restraining orders that lawyers can put into divorce petitions, restraining orders that just keep the other person from selling or disposing of your community property until we can partition. In other words, decide who's going to ultimately take ownership of what. To much bigger, more serious protective orders. And Erin actually specializes in those kinds of protective orders for really abusive situations.
And we filmed some other videos on that too. So if y'all have any questions on those injunctions or protective orders, please go check out those videos. And then one more thing I do want to touch on with those, what things can a lawyer do to kind of alleviate some of the concern of retribution or retaliation that we're going to get? So we do see concerns of physical abuse and things like that. We also see financial concerns. Hey, he's going to kick me off the bank accounts. But is that information you encourage people to share with you at your first consultation?
Absolutely. That's crucial for the lawyer to know, because that kind of information is what dictates what advice we're going to give or what plan that we put together for your case. We know the law. We're experts in the law, but you're experts in your life and your spouse and how your spouse reacts to bad news. And so we really rely on the client to tell us what is going on and what they're concerned about so that we can address those things. And there's very little that I think that we haven't seen. Of course, we haven't seen it all, but I think that we've seen a lot. So it is not likely at all that whatever it is that you're going to tell us is the first time we've heard something like that. Every case is unique, but we definitely, in specializing in a certain area of law, you tend to see certain patterns of behaviors from certain types of people. And so again, consulting with an expert in family law is invaluable in terms of knowing what can be done about your specific situation.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely an excellent sentiment that I would reiterate to everyone is what we don't know what to protect you from if you don't tell us what your concerns are. And so, I think that's kind of a good little bow to wrap up on for those two main concerns that we've discussed so far, the financial and emotional. We are going to have a second part to this video where we talk about some of those legal roadblocks or legal concerns that clients have before coming in to meet with an attorney. So we will see you in the next video.
Bye.
Hey, we appreciate you watching that video. If you have other questions about other legal topics, check out our website, johnsonfirmla.com, or our YouTube page. We put out material all of the time in the areas of family law, personal injury, and criminal defense. We really appreciate you checking us out. Thanks so much.